proudly at the beginning of the parliamentary year, a year, I think, which will demonstrate to Tasmanians the extraordinary position this state finds itself in, and equally will demonstrate to Tasmanians the strong position that Tasmanian Labor are in. This morning we heard from our leader, Dean Winter, his address in reply, and it was coloured with strength and energy. It was visionary. It set out a very clear determination about where Tasmanian Labor are at. And from across the chamber, the immature chuckles that occur are an indication of where this government is at. Because yesterday, the Premier, in stark contrast, was flat, uninspired in content in terms of where he sees the state of Tasmania now, not able to articulate a clear, strong, hopeful vision for this state, but instead proudly off the back of yesterday declaring that, you know what, we're going into our fourth 100-day plan. Now, when you're the leader of a state in a country of Australia, your responsibility is to cast a vision, to show hope and to say what the future 20, 50 years ahead could be for this state. And instead, they're so far down in the weeds and tripping over themselves that not only have they done a 100-day plan or a 2 100-day plan or a 3 100-day plan, but they are now so focused at their feet that they're delivering a fourth 100-day plan. Compared to Tasmanian Labor, where we are together, we are strong, we are determined and focused on industry, on business, on development, on workers each and every day here. We, leading here on this side from the centre, are looking after and looking forward for all Tasmanians. And there's no better demonstration of where we're at on this side of the chamber. And I want to acknowledge at this time that Rebecca White, in leaving the Parliament over the break, wishing her very well for her campaign ahead, and acknowledging the presence in the chamber today of Casey Farrell, our newest member of the Tasmanian Labor Party, a member that is clear about what can happen in Tasmania, particularly when you invest in innovation and look to the future, a strong individual with a great position and a fantastic addition to our team. Having mentioned Rebecca White, Casey Farrell, I'd also like to, as others in the chamber have done, is shout out to my Bass colleague Jess Teasdale, who's a candidate in the federal election coming up for Bass, an exceptional candidate with a clear understanding and commitment to the future of Tasmania, having been an educator and now ensuring that she can be determined to make changes for Tasmania and the country for young people in particular and their futures. That's, I speak about our side of the chamber and where we're at with confidence and with pride, but I do want to reflect, as the State of the State addresses are about, reflecting on the state of this state, on where this government seems to be right now. It's really important to reinforce that, yes, this is the second day back to the Parliament of the year, a very late start for a Parliament. It's clearly a strategy by this government to delay scrutiny and to delay being in this place where they can be held to account for the failings that they continue to deliver. But at this point where we're reflecting on the state of Tasmania, we have to be reminded that this is not the beginning, the opening of Parliament for this year. This is the 11th year of this government, who are responsible for all of the things being experienced and not experienced in Tasmania right now. This government, after 11 years, have built up the red tape, have been responsible for the public service, have stopped investment coming into this place, have made it harder for people to start small and micro businesses, harder for people to expand their existing businesses, and harder for the interests of people across the world to invest their funds into Tasmania. And that's all at the feet of this government, who over the last 11 years have created the circumstances that we find ourselves in now. And those circumstances from a budgetary position are woeful. This government has successfully destroyed the Tasmanian budget. Over 11 years of budget mismanagement, we find ourselves in the worst circumstances in terms of budget debt and budget deficit. And we know that this government government all of a sudden are trying to come across as refreshed and interested in how they might actually walk that back. But we know, again, that this government, great with announcements, great with thought bubbles, great with quick ideas, but horrendous with delivery and follow-up. So where the government, on repeat, and you hear the Treasurer say it all the time, we've got a pathway to surplus. Well, Treasurer, outline what that looks for. Draw a picture for Tasmanians about what your pathway to surplus looks like. Every 6 months, there is a financial report provided to the people of Tasmania, whether it be the budget that's delivered or whether it be the half-point report. Every 6 months, why don't you map out what you see the pathway to surplus to be? What does it look like in 6 months' time? What does it look like in 12 months' time, 18 months' time? What are the actual figures that you are determining that you are delivering us back to surplus? Because no one on this side or the people in Tasmania believe that you actually have that. And you have to know by now, just by saying something doesn't make it true. Just by saying that you are going to create, and I loved this one today, the Premier said it and other ministers have said it, we are going to, and I've written it down here, we're going to create an environment and economy for investment. We are going to create. Yes, after 11 years, you have completely stuffed up the ecosystem in Tasmania where people don't want to invest or can't invest. You have made it so hard. Your own admissions today that there's too much red tape. There is too much of you getting in the way of opportunities for Tasmania. And the poor budgetary position could actually be improved if we could attract in and secure investment. In my own portfolio area of energy and renewables, there's around $25 billion, that's $25,000 million waiting in the wings, ready to be invested in Tasmania. If we could add that economic stimulus to our communities, many of them regional communities, then Tasmania wouldn't actually be so reliant on trying to correct your poor budget position. We know that with the most well-known projects, Robbins Island, 8 years of planning challenges so far under their belt. Whaleback Ridge took 4 years to get approved into a planning process. Whaleback Ridge still don't have a staged lease that could be conditioned to allow them to secure future support for their project, and Robbins Island are still faced with challenges. You look at the uncertainty around the North West Transmission development. Are you actually capable of delivering that infrastructure? Is that something you're actually committed to? Because there's a whole lot of scepticism in the community around your capacity and your commitment to delivering that transmission infrastructure. Are you actually committed to Marinus? Marinus was actually, and to his credit, although all he does is make great announcements, the former minister brought this package of opportunity to the country. Tasmania actually birthed out the Marinus idea. But now Tasmania remains to get in the way. Tasmanian Labor said if you can't do it, get out of the way. You should, as a way to ensure and protect the Tasmanian financial position, sell off your share to the federal government to ensure that, one, we don't have to invest those funds, we could be investing them into Tasmania to make things in Tasmania, and two, don't be the reason why Marinus is actually delayed further and further, which makes it more expensive. At the moment, you are a handbrake on opportunity, you are a handbrake on investment, and is impacting Tasmanians right across the state, but most exceptionally in regional Tasmania. There is onshore wind opportunities, there are offshore wind opportunities in Tasmania, and there has been a recognition that we have a generational and economic step change opportunity to attract in economic activity to Bell Bay, not only through the Bass Strait offshore wind zone, but from the other offshore wind zones across the South Australia, Victoria, up to New South Wales regions. And if we're not fast enough, I say we, because I love Tasmania and I feel like we are part of pushing outcomes for Tasmania. If you are not fast enough, if you do not get out of the way of opportunity, then we're going to lose it. You committed money into the budget for the Bell Bay zone to take the opportunity of offshore wind, but you delayed it out and stretched it out over the forward estimates. That money needs to be, the $5 million needs to be brought forward to this year to create the business case to ensure that we can secure the investment to get that benefit into Tasmania. But you won't consider that. If we can't get the business case done and actually secure those investments in the next 6 to 12 months, the opportunity will be lost. You have to reverse engineer the timing to make sure that we are ready and available for when that opportunity comes. And for people that haven't quite grasped the scale of that opportunity, if we can actually benefit from and utilise Bell Bay to deliver all of those opportunities offshore in Bass Strait, it's the equivalent of the 100 years of hydro development in Tasmania in terms of a new economic opportunity for this state. It would be incredible, but it requires this government to get out of their way and act with urgency, as everyone is saying, to deliver and secure those opportunities. There are so many things within Tasmania that are being let down or made too difficult by this government, whether it be in energy, whether it be in agriculture, whether it be in science and tech. Missed opportunities to invest in and secure extra cable access into Tasmania. We know that Tasmanian Labor, when we're in government, when we're supporting our community, we build things, we deliver things, we make things happen. That is the core of Tasmania, that is the history of Tasmanian Labor, and that is what we are either pushing this government to do or telling this government get out of the way, so we in Tasmania don't continue to erode our financial position, our budgetary position and the Tasmanian economic position, because actually Tasmanians can't afford it. Tasmanians can't afford this privatisation agenda where you seek to sell off assets, the income-producing assets of Tasmania, then to pay off your debt without having the future opportunity to continue to invest the funds coming out of those entities into services in Tasmania. There are some pretty basic principles that need to be considered straight up about whether privatisation works and is in Tassie's best interests or not. But there's also a whole lot of history that demonstrates that privatisation pushes up costs, it reduces services and it erodes the assets, and that's not in Tasmania's interest. Just in some really simple conversations with people recently, they're expressing concerns like, I don't know why they don't take certain things off the table when there's some pretty basic fundamentals, like if a balance sheet of an entity can't actually deliver the services without support, financial support from the government, then there isn't going to be interest to do that because it doesn't make commercial sense. That is the type of entity that's actually delivering an essential service for this state, and that's the role of government. When you've got the list of all of the different GBEs and state-owned companies in Tasmania that are not off the list, that are not in the firing line, and the Premier himself says that hydro's free from that, and he calls it, I think, a sacred cow. I know he actually means that it's a cash cow. We know that for years, this government, for the 11 years of this government have been using hydro as a cash cow, not as an opportunity to facilitate economic activity and growth and provide for more in Tasmania, but for drawing out the funds from hydro instead of seeing it strategically. And that's where Tasmania is being failed. Tasmanian Labor, we are committed. We have demonstrated through our leaders' presentation today that we are looking after the workers of Tasmania. We are looking after business and industry. We are pro-development and we want to get Tasmania moving. We want to get Tasmania building things again. Two of the big projects in Tasmania that are bringing in or have the potential to bring in international investment, the HIF project and ABLE. They again have been frustrated by time by not being able to get the things that they need to progress. HIF still magically had the transmission project taken out from under them. Have you made a commitment? Will you make a commitment to make sure that they have transmission to connect to? With ABLE in Bell Bay, there were a number of proponents looking to do a range of things in the hydrogen hub at Bell Bay, and pretty much ABLE Energy are the only project still standing, yet there's this excruciating process to try and determine who will be the lead proponent for the Bell Bay hydrogen hub. And while this government continue to repeat processes and delay processes, they're missing out on opportunities. We could be leading the world in so many things here in Tasmania, but this government keeps tripping over, keeps getting in the way, keeps being possum in the headlights, stuck in inaction because they don't know how to deliver anymore. One of the things in terms of delivering for Tasmania, and it's in its simplest form, What's needed at Bell Bay is water and power. We know that if the generators can't get approvals, then we can't get more power. There is not enough power in Tasmania being generated to run existing businesses or the growth in existing businesses, and there's definitely not enough for the attraction of new investment. But there are solutions. We spent hours in this parliament it's actually now a year and a bit ago, making sure that we changed the legislation to allow water to go through the Tamar irrigation scheme into Bell Bay. We created the instruments to do it. Everyone is motivated for it. The Tamar farmers want the water. The people in Bell Bay want the water. Why? You as a government just miss out on the simple wins all the time. I don't know why you make the processes for yourself so frustrating and why you make your life so difficult when there's some really obvious things to get going. If action was taken to ensure that water could get to Bell Bay, that you drag the water through the irrigators in the Tamar Valley on the way through, you get solutions and productivity and growth, and you get jobs, you get all sorts of opportunities. And you have had years to deliver that and still no outcomes. The frustration is growing. The frustration is real. I know that this government say that certain people stand up with them and say that, you know, this is a fantastic... There are entities in this state that know that they need to support the government. When people are in government, people want to support them, no matter how badly you're doing. But what I loved today was, I thought it was actually very fascinating, that even the Small Business Council of Tasmania questions the capacity of this government to deliver genuine outcomes and positive outcomes for Tasmania through the privatisation agenda. There are so many people now that are questioning this government, that are disappointed with this government, that are being let down by this government. What Tasmania needs is competence, strength, action. Do stuff, get out of your own way, make sure that you support the people in the community that are actually building the jobs, that are actually doing the work. The pipeline of work opportunity in Tasmania is pretty bumpy, and there are people in Tasmania that have invested so much for so long that want to actually activate things right across the state in different regions, again, that are being let down by how smooth the pipeline of work works through this government. Tasmanian Labor. We build stuff, we get things moving, we support our communities, we support workers. I have to say, and they're almost all in the chamber tonight, in terms of supporting workers, the salmon industry in Tasmania has been under fire, and irresponsibly so by many, not only just in the recent weeks, but for months and for years. You would not find better people in Tasmania, the more salt of the earth, committed to local community people than the people that work in our salmon farms across Tasmania. What's been happening in the last couple of weeks has been horrendous for everybody, but none more than the people that work on those farms. We have seen immediate responses by the salmon industry to the devastation of the mortalities, where they have had teams walking beaches, collecting material, working 24/7 with harvesting to ensure that they can get through the peak of, and actually, as I understand it, we are now through the peak of this devastating time. There were people that spoke today about the devastation, about the events that have occurred, with no compassion, no care for the people that are actually doing this work. There are people working 24/7 on their days off, in their hours off, going because they are passionate and care about the environments that they work in. People that work in the salmon industry in Tasmania, they are also fishers, they are surfers, they are divers, they are footy coaches, they are family members that love what they do and care deeply about what they do. And so, and I know there have been some people on the other side that have also said this either today or yesterday, but I have a shout out for the people in the salmon industry who, under such intense pressure and such unfair characterisation, continue to get up every day exhausted and overwhelmed by what is happening, but they do it because they know it's the right thing to do and because they care. Tasmanian Labor will always back in our salmon workers, we will always back in our forestry workers, we will always back in mining workers, we will always back in renewable energy projects. We build stuff, we get things done, we make sure we're not in the way. We are committed to the future of Tasmania. We are committed to the future of young people in Tasmania. We want to see this place work together to ensure there are strong future futures for Tasmania, and we want to see that this government stops the economic and the budgetary wrecking that is occurring right now, takes seriously their responsibilities, is committed to the things that they announce, not just trying to shine